Let's just take a small second before entertaining Spellbinder and think back a couple of months to where perhaps you and I together sat mutually of our first interaction to ATHEREUM's work via Karma Bound. And it's an experience I think about quite often. I almost lose a sense of time to it because every time I go back and re-listen to this piece, it still feels as fresh a memory as ever. Many of you know, in terms of musical fascination, my favorite artistic language in terms of the bunch, really, I prioritize metal listens. I've been a metalhead of many years, and in that particular field, if I'm open to any type of metal stylization, symphonic metal immediately forms a bridge with me on connection. So on promise of what I was about to entertain on ambition and statement and vision of ATHEREUM, I knew it would be something synergistic to my tastes. And you might remember my story coming in. Again, I'll sum it up briefly, but it's not oftentimes I discover groups via, well, sometimes yes, but through a directed Instagram interaction. That's been the case in maybe some instances past. I'm thinking notably of Silent King. I believe it's Oklahoma-based, I think, Christian metal band, and one that was really impressive from what I heard, again, on the first two songs. I can't wait to hear more. But it's a rare mechanism that groups arrive to my personal vantage point from that lens, but ATHEREUM did. And immediately when I consulted their bio, I saw the symphonic metal tagline. I'm like, okay, a new inquiry. And when Karma Bound released, I had already mapped it out. I'm like, I'm going to hear it. We're going to witness it together. Because I've always said, music is best enjoyed in company. And I intentionally maintain an available platform for emerging artists. To this point, there's not been one song or artist I've not loved humoring, especially in mutual graces, if in any way there's an option to pitch roots for you. And I know this was successful based on one comment I got via our Karma Bound. And I hope the same story is true with you. I would recommend, if you've not humored Karma Bound, you do that to give you a footing of understanding for where we now sit with Spellbinder. And perhaps your initiation, my freshened reintroduction. And I'll explain what exactly determined the change and why that exists. But still, I am just as elated to be entertaining this piece as I was the first time I witnessed it. Anywho, if you have, as I said, if you've not approached Karma Bound, you totally should. I think back again on that experience quite fondly. In terms of an establishing symphonic metal voice, I was surprised by the capability. And I've seen this with several emerging artists in different metal fields. It just took my breath away in terms of level of precision, really. I'm still shocked. Every re-listen I give Karma Bound, I'm not trying to exaggerate, I find it to be quite a welcome and adventurous symphonic metal piece and illustrates a group that is definitely going places. Now, as I said, there's a differentiation to our vantage point of journey here for me, in that Karma Bound was a fresh interaction witness. Spellbinder is not. It's a reintroduction, though intentionally, I have maintained a distance from it in the months that I've been exposed. I'm not saying this to brag. I was given an early window to this piece via the group. I've been in connection with them over DMs. I was given an early preview of it, and I was able to witness it for myself, and I provided the group with just some of my thoughts on a first experience. That was somewhere in November. A little late, I forget exactly what date it was, but I've known about it since then. I have not forgotten about this song at all in terms of experience, and I would classify it in preparation as, and I told the group this, and I stand by it, and I can't wait to experience it again. I would say Spellbinder is an evolutionary symphonic metal work. Quite a surprising piece on first experience. The level of precision to this number and what it's reminiscent to for me in terms of other metal exploration from a wide pool of artists of different stylings as well. The nostalgia element of what it brings up for me. I can't say this enough, and I don't mean to exaggerate in any way. Spellbinder is an impressive work, and I've been waiting to humor it with you, with the caveat of being able to explore it again for myself, because I've waited intentionally so this can be as fresh of a re-entrance as possible for all of you who have not yet welcomed the graces of Spellbinder into your music library. And I think once you witness it, it's going to immediately draw a chord. If you are a metal fan, or even I don't think you even have to be a metal fan necessarily, just have open tastes to good art, and I think this piece will suit your interest. Again, however you approach, initiating fan or standing fan to where perhaps you've explored them mutually, or you've heard Spellbinder in advance. I think anyone should find themselves welcome to this piece, and I cannot wait to interact with you over a listen of it mutually in collaboration to one another, as long as it's taken for me to get here given my schedule, which is always a drag. Oh man, I'm trying to work on mitigating life. It is so challenging though. But now, finally, we get to interact with Spellbinder together. Been waiting for this opportunity. Let's humor it. Perhaps for you, on a first debut listen, for me, a return to a really stellar work in the symphonic metal sphere, One that is, you'll see, if you've not welcomed it, immediately impressive. I have my notes here as well from reference with the group's discussion, so I might pull from that just to make sure I'm getting all my points clear and how much I revere it. This is a very detailed piece. See? Deliberate symphonic cue. Bit gothic, too. Key variation. Beautiful evolution on vocals too. The intermixing on those tails, fantastic. The synthetic chic again, both Karma Bound and Spellbinder have some uniqueness from one another, but again, they're dominantly symphonic metal voiced. Oh, here we go, the second section, I remember this. It's coming. The vocal control here on this one, though, really impresses me. As it did with Karma Bound, but it's fantastic. Drawn out choruses. I love how the song takes its time. And again, the interweaving on slight tonal mixtures. Beautifully managed. What a great work. Here. That section is fantastic in my opinion. Just carries you along as a work, especially when these choruses come up. Anytime the ballad mixture resonates, and it's really potent here. Just lets you flow along with it. Higher vocal ranges, I love that. It's a brief touch, but it's a beautiful trial here with this number. It's fitting for where we are. These sections, albeit brief, are just perfect, aren't they? Differentiated again from the flow of the chorus. The way we end is quite interesting, but just to end on that note, again, I told you I forgot where it was. I thought it was in the second chorus or leading up to that with the verse, so that's why I specified, like, oh, I know what's coming here. I forgot exactly where, though, it was placed. It's after, I think, that second chorus is where, yes, it first arrived. Isn't that little space of the song just so beautiful, though? Like I said, an evolutionary symphonic metal work with tonal intrusions from other metal stylings, lightly. Lightly and dominant. I sense, for example, power metal, a slight heavy metal twinge, namely on the unclean vocals and some of the harder riffs, and an electronic metal voice. Maybe you could say as well, modern metal could fit into that, but I see different extremes coming through here where Spellbinder is really an amalgam, though of a symphonic dominance. I love how openly symphonic it is. As I said to the group, I'm going over, like I said, just some notes I made in terms of exchanges, and I'm incorporating some of those thoughts here just so you know where my heart was again on initiation, but even more so now. On return, I didn't say this, guys, I didn't notice it before. Kristen's vocals, this is really interesting. And I'm not thinking of symphonic metal examples, but I've talked about this before in terms of my initiation with music and why I have such a developed love for it. Again, it dated to many years ago, back in like the early... Well, the music that came my way was probably late 80s to 90s and 2000s. Before, like, pre-2010, somewhere in that window, but of course I was born in 97, so my earliest emergence was in the 2000s era. I was raised on Christian music, notably of the contemporary and worship varieties, and some rock did make its way through. And over time, I've taken that foundation and opened it up quite substantially to other secularized artists, not even just within the Christian metal or rock territory. Certainly I've expanded since when I was, 6, but I've maintained quite a wide landscape to where I presently sit now. It's interesting, though, when I listen to Spellbinder, I promise, again, that's not going on an unrelated tangent, I humor that piece vocally. It's really funny how Spellbinder on vocal command, it's nostalgic. Because I'm probably the only one to notice this, just from the track I'm sampling. It's a favorite of mine, but anybody else know, if you're familiarized to Christian music, Rebecca St. James? Foundational name, quite a legacy to her offering. She's very well known in the contemporary sphere. One of her oldest pieces, Reborn, The Key. Oh, it's such a favorite. I return to that one quite often. It's such a good piece. A bit of a darker edge to it, too. For, I would say, Christian contemporary music, it's somewhat differentiated. Some of her older music really was back then. She's done a lot of, like, worship stuff primarily. That's what she's mostly known for. But, like, Wait For Me, or what was that collab she did with Chris Tomlin? I forget. Anyway, the earlier pieces, like with God and Love, Pray, but Reborn always. Oh my gosh, it's such a good memory. I listened to Spellbinder, and not only is the key kind of associated a bit, the rhythm's not exactly. That's more of like a punk, Christian, light contemporary rock, slight dance energy number. That's kind of how I would qualify it. A bit, well, kind of pop skewed too. But the vocal presence here, I get an immediate rewind. I'm sure it probably wasn't intentional, it's just a funny coincidence. But it's like I'm experiencing that piece again from a new lens. Musically, I don't know, it's so cool. Like, I'm listening to a piece that is obviously of, again, 2023 creation, yet it kind of sounds like it floats between different eras. It's really interesting. And maybe, I don't know, Reborn is the most potent example. Maybe some others would come to mind on deeper meditation of this song. Maybe it's the key execution and the way it's crafted in terms of the ballad delivery, with some of the background vocal touches as well, with those chorus sections that immediately gives me back like to an early 2000s era rewind. It's so fascinating with this number. That's not something I mentioned to the group, but it's just something in that present circumstance I noticed again. I didn't want to neglect pointing it out because it's just such a, I can't tell you how cool of a sensation that was for me. Now, points I made clear to the group and what I still agree with to this day, just to make sure I state everything out right. The opener, incredibly strong. It's not drawn out. It begins immediately with a piercing connection. Again, a real synthetic drive with this one. And perhaps there was a light interweaving of that on Karma Bound, but it's more exaggerated here, and I think it's quite a welcome element. Again, it differentiates this piece from the other, where now for the upcoming album, I forget the name of it at the moment, but it comes across like there's going to be a mixture of execution stylings. I mean, I don't know. With, again, a dominant, is stated by the group, symphonic vision, but the interplay on this one to different metal extremes I find just so fascinating. Even when you have a ballad section, it feels like it's still going into that aggressive metal edge because it has that harder backing. And it is quite typical in symphonic metal to see that type of variance and hybrid exploration. I've seen that from a number of different groups, and ATHEREUM is just the latest addition to that. But the control on those chorus sections, the way it's organized musically, was just something really impressive. The verses, though, let me go back on that. The strings employment. And I noted this example to the group. I've spoken about it before. Favorite tune of mine, Fall in Reverse. Love them. I'm Not a Vampire, the revamped version, what was a revised form of that song told in a newer symphonic lens. Where originally it was a fun rock number, but still that newer edge to it just added so much gravitas plus a gothic tone hybrid, which I loved. The strings are really similar here on cue, and the way they transfer from one note to another, that blend, is what I call this song an evolutionary symphonic metal number and a rewind experience. To recent examples are going back like 20 years. Or however long it was that Reborn debuted. Whatever aspect of a song you examine, whether it be those chorus constructions plus the unclean vocals leading into the ballad transfer, this song has such a great flow to it that you just sit back. It's a relaxing experience, which is funny to describe like a more aggressive metal number on voice, but you just become one with the number. It just naturally engrosses you, at least it does for me. Now again, music is a subjective experience. I'm open to hearing any opinions down below from any of our listeners and your point of approach with Spellbinder. Whether you're, and ATHEREUM, I'm sure many of you again are coming of a recent emergence and familiarity, but we're enjoying these works together again on generally first tasting. But they're just such welcome experiences, aren't they? Karma Bound and now Spellbinder, captivating listens. But this one, when you see ambition, you prize it. And this number, I loved it on a first listen. Returning to it, finally, after how long of waiting to get an opportunity to get back to it, I'm very impressed with ATHEREUM. And of course, to any credit of artists I recognize here, Open Door Policy, I cannot wait for new developments. Just based on where we've gone from Karma Bound now to Spellbinder, and Karma Bound is just as great, but Spellbinder, it's such an impressive work. Ambitious, fun, beautifully crafted, well-managed, reverential. First listen, I fell in love with it. I'm sure many of you did as well on your debut interaction, however, whenever that was, whether now or earlier. But on return listens, certainly it is now, but I'm sure in opportunities forthcoming, it's an even better and stronger tune in my mind. Its freshness within a symphonic metal voice and blending in different styles and the mastery of what I hear. Deliberate influences, particularly well executed and managed. I really like Spellbinder as a work. It's a transcendent piece and one that I think will fall in favor of really any new listener, as it deserves to. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.